Pictoria Vark is familiar with the If Ever You're Listening Substack and is officially our first guest to appear twice. Our first conversation dates back to early 2024, and it was a written interview. So if you haven't read it, please read it. I will add a link to that conversation in the description. Vark was also our first guest ever in general on the If Ever You're Listening Substack and holds a special place in our community. For those unfamiliar with Vark, back in 2022, she gained critical acclaim for her dreamy indie rock debut, The Parts I Dread. In that foundational project, Vark was exploring change and the uncomfortable journey to accepting its permanence in her life. The album allowed her to tour around the country with coveted alternative, emo, and hardcore rock acts like La Dispute, Sweet Pill, and Squirrel Flower. Vark is also known for her emotive bass playing and revealing songwriting, where she tends to focus on self-analysis and how her environment affects her sense of self. Our conversation today focuses on her upcoming album, Nothing Sticks, which drops on Friday, March 21st. I had the pleasure of hearing the album early and had so much fun diving deep into the album's themes, song arrangements, songwriting process, and so much more with Pictoria. Calling all of our cats, this conversation is for you. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my conversation with Pictoria Vark. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody, to the If Ever You're Listening podcast. If it's your first time, welcome for the first time. I'm your host, Stanley C., and today we are talking with the incredible, talented, new album released soon, artist Pictoria Vark. Thank you, Victoria, for being on the show. How is your day going so far?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Yeah, really excited to be on the podcast. My day is going well so far. It's early.
Yes.
I think I woke up maybe an hour ago. So there's so much time for things to go wrong.
Yeah. Yes, or right. You never
Or
know. It may go so wrong in the wrong direction. It goes back into the right direction.
yeah,
Uh,
it's the circle of life. It's so over, we're so back. Yeah.
exactly. It's so over. We're so bad. That's hilarious. So some context. So before this video, I'm gonna do an introduction to Victoria, and we're gonna talk. You're gonna hear me describe basically her career up to this point. But for this podcast, I want to focus on the future. In particular, her new project coming out in March. Nothing Sticks. It's coming out on March 21st, and for people that are new to Pictoria's music. I always say your official name. We're gonna only refer to her as Pictoria. The thing about Pictoria's music and her as an artist up to this point is that she has one album, and this will be her sophomore album. And since it's coming out soon, I want to focus on the album as well as things to look forward to after that. So, for folks that are not familiar with their music, we have a first interview, actually, a written interview. So, please read that, enjoy that. It's on Substack and Medium. So, there's a lot of great information there. And some of the questions towards the end are going to be similar because those are my typical questions. And I'm curious how Victoria's answers actually change for that. So that's a little bit of background. So, but let's start with Nothing Sticks. And I actually want to start with how we ended the last interview. So we could make this a series because I looked at the time, it was January of last year. Now we're back February of this year, so we could do like every year. But the interesting thing about how it ended was you were talking about the touring schedule for the year, and you said, you did so many stops at your in 2022 or in 2023. So in 2024, you wanted to do less. And I wanted to hear actually how that went. How did 2024 go in terms of touring compared to 2023? And how do you see yourself touring in the future?
2024 was interesting. So at the end of last or at the end of 2023, I lost one of my part-time jobs. So I was really kind of floating around being like, I kind of don't know what to do. I like this other part-time job I have, so I don't want to leave it for like a full-time job that I really, really hate. So I'm trying to look for something that fits into that. I started teaching a lot, and then my partner at the time was like, "Hey, our bassist dropped for the 6-week tour that we have coming up. Um, like you're talented, like you're a good hang and you're free and we can pay you and I know you don't have a job, so do you want to come on tour?" And I was like, well, I guess we're gonna go on tour for 6 weeks. And I had 3 weeks to like learn their hour-long set, which I've never played with them before. And then we went on tour. And I keep forgetting that happened because it happened so early on in the year. That was definitely not in my plans of things, but it was really fun and they're all really great people. Their band is called Early Eyes. We're all still friends, even though, yeah, my like we're not dating anymore.
Mm.
And yeah, I did stop touring quite as much, but that didn't mean things got less busy. There was a stretch of the summer where I had like a show every week, and I was like, I'm just as tired doing that as I am like being on the road. I guess the difference is like you can sleep in your bed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, which is nice, or like have that kind of place to ground and land. And it really wasn't until the fall that I really was just like, I am really trying to do nothing. I think I played maybe 3 shows or something, something really like not like something really, really light in comparison to past years. But I then really struggled with like, what do I do with all my free time? I was like kind of like spinning my wheels, really like meandering because I didn't know what people do in their free time. I feel like that's what I was asking my friends. I was just like, so what are hobbies? Do you have them and what are they? So yeah, and then finally I'm like, okay, fine, things are busy again, so I don't have to figure any of that out.
No, that's incredible because you wanted to do less shows, but you ended up doing still enough shows where you felt busy. But then when the busyness ended, it's like, what do I do?
Yes.
And so I'm curious in this process, I guess take me into the timeline. When does the process to begin making Nothing Stick starts? Because we were talking a little bit about it. It didn't have a name when we were talking about it, but you're like, I'm going to work on it this year. It sounded like you were already working on it previously. But how does that fit into the busyness of the past year as well as kind of the lack of busyness and you're trying to look for things to do, hobbies to pick up.
Yeah, so what's really interesting about this record is in terms of the recording process, it kind of like it was really short and really focused, like end to end. We made this record pretty much in 2024. Like there's songs that I had written. The oldest song I think on the record is from 2021 maybe.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, we started demoing. I think I made the ask for my friend Gavin to co-produce back in December and of 2023. And so January, February, that was when we were fleshing out the songs, fleshing out the demos and arrangement ideas. Um, and we booked studio time for May at Big Nice. I think we booked that around maybe February, maybe January. So it was still like early months was like, okay, we're gonna get these demos together, we're gonna hire the band, we're gonna figure out who's playing on the record, and then we're gonna go to Big Nice Studio in May for a week and record everything.
Mhm.
And that was so much fun. We just lived at the studio. It was springtime. We were on the water. We were shooting pool. It was like the one of the easiest sessions I had ever done, which was really nice because yeah, I I don't know, when you have that limited time frame, if something isn't working, like you might walk away and not have a record. You might walk away from that and have a worse relationship with someone.
Mhm.
Um, So I feel really lucky that everyone just got along and it was just like a perfect vibe. Um, we mixed and mastered it throughout the summer. I think we finished everything with that around June or July. I think early July was when we finished that, which is a really fast turnaround time considering like I don't know. I some friends that I know that have had records that they've been working on for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, so it was like I guess to me I'm like I guess it was a short turnaround. But once we submitted it for vinyl production was July
Wow.
for the release in March.
Yeah.
So it was like, cool, we did everything. We got it in time. We're not rushing. And I'm like, now I'm sitting on my hands. I
Mm,
was like, we did some of the music videos early, or like that was throughout the summer and fall. Um, so there wasn't like a big scramble to get things together, which was relieving, but then I didn't know how to like sit with the time. So I think by like November, December, I wasn't really doing all that much with the record. And for most of January too, honestly, I was just like, cool, I'm gonna wait till we can start posting and the record cycle will begin.
yep. And now we're in it. We're
Now
in
we're
it. Now we're in the album cycle, and there's so much in this album. I'm trying to figure out what angle to attack it on. Um, but I kind of want to start with what you're talking about with you bring a group of songs to the studio and you start working on it. Because what are kind of your feelings with these songs? How do they look to you before they go into the studio? Because I imagine just from hearing this album, it sounds so big, so expansive, so beautiful, and orchestral in some parts. And that is a great stark difference from what we heard on The Parts I Dread, which is more like lo-fi, DIY, indie. There is some of that still on this project, but it grows. So how do the songs begin, and then from how do you kind of your direction shift them during the recording process with your contributors?
So, in a similar way to Parts I Dread, I wrote a lot of these songs on bass guitar with lyrics, and that was my main focus. San Diego, I wrote on guitar and then added bass, so there was that extra layer there. Um, I guess with the when I think what changed between those record or the first record that Gavin and I did and this one were our skills as songwriters, as arrangers, as producers. Um, we just had the time to listen to more music, to reflect on the work, to have the experience of making that first record that we were able to bring to the second one. As a songwriter, the things that I was focused on most on this second record were having songs with more interesting song structures, having songs with choruses and bridges and pre-choruses, like really playing with having more parts um, that I don't dread
I
being.
know. I like that. I heard it. I was like, is she gonna catch it?
Yeah, I'm always trying to like do these silly bits and sometimes it's like too much. So doing that with parts and then doing that also with chord changes with harmony. So try instead of like these songs that were had really simple chord progressions in Parts I Dread that had maybe, three, four, five song like chords maximum. I really wanted to focus on doing more interesting things harmonically. So having key changes, having um like I don't know, random diminished chords, having things that jump around a little bit more, having a bigger harmonic palette to play with. So those were the things that like I wanted to develop in my songwriting as I was making the record. And I think like I feel like I succeeded in that. Like I feel the songs are stronger in those ways. Which as thinking about songwriting as a craft like makes me really proud of that in that aspect. I think in terms of production or like I think we were also in a similar, we did something similar to Parts I Dread where we kind of demoed some things. We were like, here's some like arrangement ideas. Here's like some parts. Gavin wrote some really beautiful arrangements. He did all the string arrangements because he has a composition background. So it's like he can do all the sheet music stuff that like I can't do, and came up with some really clever melodies and like augmented the harmonic chord, like the chords that I was implying, and while also leaving space for Tori Hall, who played guitar on this record, to add her own dimension to that. And I think as guitar players, they play off really well with each other. And that the melody, like Gavin has such like a 60s inspired kind of harmonic sense, and Tori is such a guitar player. Like she brought so much texture and like really guitar focused ideas that I think really complemented each other in the studio.
Fantastic. Now, shout out Gavin and Tori. Okay, so this is good. So when I talk about guitars, I could mention Tori. When I talk about harmonics and the string sections, I could talk about Gavin.
And he also played piano and drums. He sings on the record. Like he did auto harp. He's so unbelievably talented. Like he's all over this record. Yeah. So he really did so much.
I love that. Okay, so one song I want to point out. So this is going to be a great interview because we're going to talk about an album that people, I'm going to try to build it up because this will come out before the album, presumably. And so people are going to go like, why are they, what is that? What does that mean? So, but it's not a spoil because you're not going to hear it yet. So, No One Left. I'm so curious how this song came about. I love the beat. It's hypnotizing. It's almost psychedelic to an extent. With these reverse drums or reverse synths. I'm trying to figure out which one it is. Kind of what was the inspiration to that? I wrote a lot of like alternative guitar parts, 90s. It felt really 90s inspired, cool blends of guitars, sublime. There were so many cool feelings I felt when I heard this song, but it's also kind of like a sad song. Um, and a lot of these songs are sad, but they're sad in a way that they have this introspection about kind of the fleeting nature of relationships, the fleeting nature of passion, of excitement, of touring, of performing, and kind of discuss that song in particular, but also kind of what are the themes in this album that you're kind of moving through the songs.
That song was such a fun one to make. I was really inspired by this song Wasted by Tomberlin, where she has this kind of like almost like a clave kind of feel. And I was like, that would be so interesting to try to write like a song that does that. So that's how I started experimenting with that bass part. Um, which, yeah, and then trying to figure out how to sing over that was super interesting. Like I think it took me a while to figure that out. I remember I started playing that one live, I think as early as 2022. So that and We're Musicians. No. Other things, We're Musicians and No One Left are the three oldest songs on this record. Um, and it was so interesting to like try to piece it together, especially without the backbone of drums. But I think helped me figure out like what is this song? Like, does this work? Can the vocals sit on top of this? Can I even play these two things together? And of course, I love reverse drums so much. I love reverse instruments so much. And that all goes back to my love of Moonpix by Cat Power, which opens with this song American Flag, and it starts reverse drums of Paul Revere by the Beastie Boys, and it's just the coolest thing I've ever heard. It was one of those songs where I heard it and it stopped me dead in my tracks. I was just so like, I've never heard anything like that. And having reverse drums layered with real drums on top of it, it just sounds so cool and hypnotizing. And so yeah, I'm glad we got to like do that on this song. So it was like kind of a combination of two of those things, focusing on um the bass guitar first, Oh, and then the other reference track that is really strong on this is I'm Trying to Break Your Heart by Wilco. They where like we wanted to have these different sections where it's like we'll have these distorted guitars doing this harmony in this one spot and never come back. And then we'll have this piano that comes in at the end, but only then. So it really created, it's just like we created like a moving landscape that didn't repeat, which I thought was like a really cool concept and idea. That was all like Gavin's kind of undertaking for like pushing it in that direction. He's also a big Radiohead guy, so I think that like there's some of that too in that. Um, in terms of the song's content, it was about the end of a relationship, and kind of this idea that like I don't know, like sometimes it's almost vampiric in a way of like you feel like you've sucked the life out of a relationship, like you've tended to it and you've, or you know, this person I feel like kind of maybe was like they got all that they could have wanted from this and then they were like that's it, there's nothing left to explore, there's nothing new to find out, so we're kind of done. Which and for me I was trying to like find like put the blood back in my little corpse, you know, like being like trying to yeah, mend that a little bit. Yeah, so
Wow.
that's No One Left.
No,
I guess.
go. I was gonna say, I want to stick with this idea of like a moving landscape throughout a song, and that it doesn't follow kind of like verse, chorus, and it does chord wise constantly change, and a lot of these songs do that, which I really like because it demands the listener to keep going back and listening to the entire song. You're not going to get what you got in the first half on the second half, especially on some of the songs where it explodes and envelops later in the song itself. I'm thinking Lucky Superstar, which is one of my favorite tracks. And I want to see that live because it's just so explosive. It's so big. You get that on Where It Began, which kind of it grows as well. And so maybe talk a little bit about those two songs as well as how did you guys go about changing the songs over time in terms of within the song, making it louder, bigger, and more expansive sonically.
Yeah, I love dynamics. I think they're so fun. With Lucky Superstar, I wanted to write a loud song that was going to be fun to play live. That was absolutely the focus. But I also like in even though it's heavy, I wanted it to have a song structure to be able to exist on its own as just a song. So it's like I can play that song solo and it's still the same song. I think sometimes it's like with heavy music it becomes so much like the guitar. So I wanted it to still have the backbone of like a songwriter writing a heavy song. Um, it's about kind of this. I remember there was this Nylon article in 2019 where they interviewed a lot of like female musicians about like weird experiences they had, and it was and then all the stuff with like Chapel Roan was happening, and I was like, wow, nothing really changed. And also like, why is like it's crazy that it's like bad when you're the one that's like on stage and like in power and the one that people like are looking at, and it's just like, who are you? You're just like some dude and you're being rude and like so it was kind of about that. Where It Began is my favorite song on the record. It's like it's about a friendship that still exists in my life, but the dynamic of it changed. Like we aren't as close as we used to be. And I think there's almost like that bittersweetness or that heartbreak when it's like you still see someone and you haven't lost them in your life, but it changed so much and it's like it's not going back to that old place. And just like trying to accept that and feel grateful for it more than like, you know, sad or, you know, it's almost easier when it's like someone walks away from your life totally because then you're not reminded, you know, you're just like you can put that in a little memory box and like not engage with it. But if you're still seeing someone, that still comes up. That you still have to like like whenever you see them, like you're going to be reminded of kind of this older time. Yeah, and it just made me feel the like lengths of my life, and I just wanted to try to reframe this thing to like make it feel more to make myself feel more grateful for things that have left me. Which I have a hard time doing. I ruminate on everything all the time. Um, so in terms of the like dynamics and that kind of thing. Yeah, Brad and Gavin, who co-produced this with me, they had so many great ideas for what layers to add, like how to make each song kind of live in its own sonic world. And they collaborated so well together. And yeah, we had so many reference tracks that we all kind of put together. But so much of that was like in studio exploration and just playing around with the instruments that Brad had in studio. He's also the person that engineered the session, but he owns the recording studio and has lived and worked in that for so many years, so he knows his gear really, really well. And I think that was his biggest asset as a producer, to be like, let's try this guitar with like this mute, or being like, oh, I feel like this organ, or like he had so many organs and pianos, like being like, let's do this piano in this room, in the big wet room, so that we can like have this kind of sound. So kind of being able to like play texturally in that way was really, really helpful to have someone who's like, I have a big toolbox and palette, and like I can find the mics and the things that are going to make us get the sound that we are looking for. Um, with Where It Began to, the thing that I this was also what song? Oh, we were really inspired by the song Words by Low, which is one of my favorite songs ever. Really great like vocal and bass line interplay there. But instead of doing the like typical logic of having like smaller verse, like drier drums in the verse, bigger drums in the chorus, we did the opposite. We had these really big drums in the verse, and then they like become really dry in the chorus. So it's almost like you're like dreaming, you're like far away, and then you're like snapped back to like the present.
I love that. Okay. That, I mean, as we spoke previously, I thought Demarest was your masterpiece. Then when I heard Where It Began, my note was her new masterpiece. So it's amazing that you guys went into it with so much intentionality, as well as a lot of like play that you guys did in the studio, and it came out phenomenal. So that for folks, that's a special one. They're all special, but that's like a special one. So I want to touch on what you were saying about your friend, and you mentioned a lot of people, other friends, other past relationships in this album. I'm thinking about Sarah right now. I wrote like vignettes on three people in her life. Like we got Vinny, we got Jack, we got Sarah. And I kind of want to talk about the people in this album as so how do you go about sharing stories? Because you're saying names. Yeah, are they real names? Are they made up characters? Kind of how do you use characters in your songs, and what is like the use of them, the tool of them for the overall kind of theme or the meaning of a song? How do you go about that? I know some because I asked because some artists are they use the real people's names and they get in trouble after. Some people make up names, some people use a real person but they change the name. So kind of what is your approach to this?
A lot of the names that are on the record are real people. There's only one that's made up, and that is Andy in I Sing What I See. That person, not real. I think it's like I wanted to, well, for Sarah, like Sarah and Finn are some of my best friends, and I wanted to write this song of like, this is my like gift to you. This is like how much I love you. This, and so it's like, you know that it's for you. And the third person, Jack, that is an ex-boyfriend. But I kept it there because I was like, I wanted to be like, I like this at the time meant a lot to me. Like this at the time was someone that like I cared about enough to like write into this song. And I was like, I am not going to erase my life that way. And it's when Stevie Nicks in Silver Swings is like, you'll never get away. Like I will follow you down till the sound of my voice it haunts you. I was like, sorry, you can't get away from this one. Um, not in like a malicious way, and I'm just like, don't like you're not gonna find him, It's like no last name. He's not in the credits, he's just a person, but I think kind of like I like that as an introduction to the record too, because it's like this thing that did mean so much, it's over, but it still exists. Like I think there's something about like I don't know, about that I think was really interesting to me, especially like in kind of figuring out what the theme of all these songs were or like the record. I think I always come back to people in my songs. I think because that is just like my biggest interest in life. I just love other people, which is kind of a new feeling. Like, I think I was so depressed and kind of antisocial in like high school.
Mhm.
And it's really only in my like 20s that I've been like, wow, I have so much love for so many people, for stuff in my life. And I think the hardest part about life is like you don't always get as much time as you want with the people you love. I love this show called The Good Place. It's one of my favorite sitcoms. And at the end of season 4, I think it's Chidi who says like heaven is just having enough time with the people you love. Yeah. And
Real.
I'm like, I think that's what's so hard about life is like it gives you like the things you love. Like it gives you so much to love and it'll take it all away.
Yep. And that's reminding me of a line from We're Musicians. You're like, treat the past like a lifeline. I'll hold you for the rest of time, I think.
Yeah.
So kind of that idea of when you really miss the past, you're holding on to it. You're thinking about it all the time. You're reminiscing about it all the time. Um, and it can console you to an extent, but I love in the when you were describing the album and like the write up for this album, you were saying you found peace in that things constantly are changing. Or there's this sense of resolution. There's this sense of kind of like acceptance that's helpful. It doesn't make it easier, but it's helpful that once you accept it as truth. And I really resonated with that idea, and I like this idea of looking at the past and seeing it as a lifeline because it's important to also go back, but you don't have to stay there. But that's tough. But I feel like this album is really good at for folks that are struggling with that, finding ways to accept it and finding ways to still love the past like where it began, but you have just that. Have it's like it's still important that it's there, but it's not everything. There's another great line I love on I pushed it down, desires separating me from myself at the seams. I just love the way you sing that line. It like breaks my heart hearing it, and it's just heartbreaking. But kind of maybe describe I pushed it down, and the making of that song.
So, we're musicians. This line in particular, I really struggled with like putting the like finishing touch on it. I was trying a lot of different options, but none of them felt quite like exactly what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it, until I landed on this set of words. And I wanted it to be this duality of like, you can't forget the past. Like if you have to keep some of that with you because that is who you are. Like that's how you became the person you are now. It made you you. Um, but also like if you're clinging onto the past like it's a life raft, then you're like beholden to it. And that's not, allowing you to move forward. So as a verb there to mean like you can hold someone like in a loving embrace, and you can also hold someone down. Like I think it's both of those things of like that can be true about the past. And I don't think it's like it's just recognizing and naming that that the past can do that.
Mm, I love that. And and how about the line, desire separating me from myself at the seams on I pushed it down. So kind of talk more about I pushed it down and that line in particular, but kind of what that line means maybe in terms of how it fits in the album. This idea of desire separating you at the seams. So are you saying like you don't want to always be beholden to desire? Or is it more about kind of not losing control in general?
Yeah, so that line is from I Sing What I See. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so on that line, what am I desire like I think sometimes when we want something so much, it can take us off the best path for us. Um, and I think I was thinking about that with touring so much. Like
Mhm.
I was like, I want this thing so bad, and I'm like doing it to the maximum. And is that what I'm supposed to do? Like, am I doing life right? And it was like seeing other friends make different choices, prioritizing like having partners and like building, a cozy apartment for themselves. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Is that bad? And it just made me feel like insecure in my own life choices.
Understood. Understood. I am so sorry I pushed it down. Now I don't have a quote for you, but
No, that's okay.
we could talk about I pushed it down, but I do want to go to San Diego next because we could add pushed it down if there's any connective tissue between the two songs. But San Diego, um, love the video. You're at like a fair or a carnival of something, like a fair more than a carnival. I love the line about it's a very straightforward line, but it means like in San Diego, I'm wherever I go. So that means a lot, and especially as somebody who travels a lot, and as a touring musician, that means a lot to us people who change locations because it also is about kind of losing yourself. Because if you're at wherever you go, that means you aren't anything static, you aren't anything permanent, and that's a lot to reconcile with. So kind of talk about how was it making that music video, where was it, as well as how was making that song, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So we filmed the video at the Iowa State Fair, and I did it decide to do that for a few reasons. One, I think it's funny to have the song be called San Diego and be doing something so Midwestern. Like I love that kind of juxtaposition. Even though it's like super sunny, it's like very summery, but it's like so funny to be like the song is called San Diego and we are in Des Moines, Iowa. And then the second reason is like I think a big focus that I've wanted to do on this album cycle is like if I'm going to be spending this much money on music and time, I want to have it feel purposeful and I want to be have it be fun. Like I think that was the other thing that I was running up against with tour is like I spent all this money on like t-shirts. I was just like I had spent more money like other than, car and like a college in college. That was the my next biggest purchase was t-shirts for a tour. And that doesn't feel it's like didn't feel in alignment like with things that I actually care about, but you need it to like make money on tour. And I was like, and then what? And then what? And then I still work my job and I still like, so it just, I was like, whatever I'm doing, like if I'm spending money on music, it has to be for a good reason. And I was like, I've never been to the Iowa State Fair and I really want to go. So,
Uh-huh.
and this is like an actual spoiler for people, but more as like a treat or as something to like look for as things are coming out. So this is kind of before, or the seed was planted in like making San Diego the first single of like it's such a bright summery song. We have this like really like Super 8 summer video, and I was like doing that in the dead of January. Like, and you're that's when you like miss summer most. Um so that's why I was like it's gonna hit so different in the cold and the snow in the winter. But something that we're doing in for the rest of the music videos is they're all going to be seasonal. So it's like San
Ooh.
Diego is the summer one. We have the next video, Make Me a Sword, is like very witchy fall. And then we have a winter one, and then I have a concept for a spring one. So that way it's like all four videos together. It's the changing seasons. Like
Love that.
um yeah, which I'm like that's so on theme for like everything in the record, you know.
Because everything changes.
Yeah,
Um,
nothing sticks.
and the seasons is the big one. Nothing sticks. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's so cool. Spoiler, or I would say like special news. Okay, so let's do my if ever you're listening question. So, we went all the way in so many different directions. I love that, and I wanted to touch on the songs with that, not do like a one, two, and go through the track list. We kind of did it in this very cool exploratory way, which I hope the listener you enjoyed because it's a really good album. And when there's even more songs, we didn't touch on all the songs. So, and they're awesome. Okay, so next is if ever you're listening. So this is called If Ever You're Listening. We talk about also things we're listening to in this portion. And I still remember some of the songs you were telling me last year, like you were listening to Tinashe and a few other folks. But at this point in the year, in this year, 2025, what are you listening to these days?
Right now, I have Tunnel of Love by Bruce Springsteen on repeat.
Nice.
Um, I guess it is Valentine's Day coming up when we're recording this, and that song is like maybe one of my favorite Springsteen songs ever. Like, I think he just goes to such a real place on that record, and it's so interesting to hear with like the synths and stuff. Like, I think what's really great about the run from like Nebraska, Born to Run or sorry, Nebraska Born in the USA and Tunnel of Love is he's like it's both an exploration of like form or and sorry and like he's working on just what how he's making music in addition to like having like this is what the like the album is about. So there's this level of both like this like having a craftsmanship element to that of like these are all united in this way and I was working in this method, which I feel was really inspiring to me as an artist, and then thinking about like records also or like thinking about making music like the process of that being just as important to like have an idea around that or have like different things that you're exploring on a new record. So I've had that on repeat. I've been listening to Fly by the Chicks, the
Ooh.
1999 or 98 pop country classic for of the formerly Dixie Chicks. Um, but Fly, I'm like, wow, that record is so good. I'm really, really enjoying it. And then I've also been listening to a lot of Jim Legacy, who is so amazing, like British, and it combines like so many weird genres of like hip hop and also like Midwest emo and also like drum and bass, like um and yeah, just like really, really cool stuff. It feels very British. Like it feels very like British, like it makes sense to me. I don't know, there's so much like dance music there and like cool electronic stuff coming from that scene. So yeah, those are
Very.
kind of the three things that I have on repeat right now.
I love that. It's eclectic. You're getting different genres. We're getting different time, generations. Fantastic list. The next question is about your show. So, at this point, I don't believe there's any like Nothing Sticks tour dates out, but there are two dates that are important. One of which, for anybody that's watching this, I'll be at the Brooklyn show. I just got my ticket, so
Oh my
I'm
god.
They're like swimwear, so we could connect there in person. But you're also going to be at the Empty Bottle, which is another fantastic venue in Chicago. So what can fans expect at these shows? These songs are really, really cool and kind of I can't imagine that the show would be similar to the Parkside Dread show, but maybe from your perspective, how are they similar or different from the Parkside Dread era?
What the biggest difference is, we are actually doing rehearsals for these shows, which sounds crazy, but yeah, for Parts I Dread stuff, I was not rehearsing a lot. Like, I kind of, I did a summer tour with Jason and Gavin, who are going to play in my live band, and we had one rehearsal, and then we played the shows. And I know that we know each other well enough. They've learned their stuff that I can just fly in and do that. But I think there is something to be said of like having semi-regular rehearsals to really sharpen things. And I was like, wow, maybe practice does make perfect.
Nice.
The Chicago show, I'm so excited. I'm having my biggest on-stage band ever. We have live strings, so it's going to be a five-piece Pictoria Vark band, never before seen. Um, yeah, and the tricky thing about leading the album with the songs with strings is that I'm like, I don't have strings players normally, but I was like, I pushed it down as like kind of hard I'm like trying to figure out, can I even do that without strings? I don't know. And then even New York, it's like we're doing a four-piece band, maybe five, maybe six, I don't know. So wait, hang on. Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna at least be a four-piece band, which will be really fun. And yeah, I'm like trying to plan some covers. Like I'm trying to be like, is there anything cool that we're doing? And what's been really great about working with my band in Chicago, my drummer Nico especially, and my guitarist Chet, is they have such great ideas for things. And so it's like we have some live versions of songs that like are different than how we do them on the record. We have like a full band version of I Sing What I See, which is like one of my favorite ways that we play it. I was just like, damn, I wish we did this on the record, but I think it's like so special that it like exists in kind of both. And like hopefully we'll yeah record yeah those at some point. But I'm really excited to meet you in New York. That's gonna be so fun. My
Gonna be so
parents
much.
are gonna be there.
Yeah, I get to meet Victoria's
Yeah,
parents.
be like, how's Wyoming?
Wait, those are going to be all my questions. How's Wyoming? Did you listen to Demarest? Is that what you were telling her when you moved? Did you really tell her to pack the bags? No, that's so cool. Okay, I'm so excited now. So my next question is about I'm gonna change this question. I have a different question in my head right now. For Nothing Sticks, what was the easiest song to write and what was the hardest song to write and why?
Ironically, they're the singles that are out now. Yeah, San Diego came together like, like butter on toast. It
Mhm.
was like I wrote the, guitar part. It was just like, this feels good. And then I was like, I like this bass part. And then Gavin's like, I hear exactly what I want to add on it. And we didn't change that much from the like first demo, except like he laid out the string part on guitar, and I was like, let's not do the guitar minis, but let's change the instrumentation there. And when we got to the studio, Brad's like, I know exactly what I want to add. Like, let's do the piano, let's do this, this is the mic setup. Like we were just so locked in on making that. It just came together so seamlessly. Tori did a great job like picking up the parts and like yeah, playing my shitty acoustic part way better, even though they were like, we want your shitty acoustic part back, and I was like, okay. So yeah, yeah, hats off to the whole team. We have Katie Jacoby and JB Fulbright on strings. Katie Jacoby, who is an actual rock star, her gig right now is playing violin with The Who and on tour, which is crazy that she was like, "Yeah, I want to play on your record." She is maybe the coolest person I've ever met in my entire life. So humble and just so talented and a great hang, like funny, sweet person. And JB Fulbright, just like extremely talented cellist, Providence legend. And yeah, really added so much, like we were laying on so much cello all over the record, thanks to them. And then I Pushed It Down was almost did not make the record. I was like, we gotta throw this song out. Like it's bad. Like when we first were demoing it, it was so different. And the way I wrote it was like in these like descending thirds on bass. And then Gavin was trying like harpsichord, like it sounded, but it wasn't working. I was like, none of like, but we couldn't hear a direction for it. So that was one where it's like in the middle of demoing, Gavin had a really great suggestion to have me go back and like rewrite some parts. And that was like, oh, if I do that, like let's change the bass line. And that really opened up the feel to be so different. Um, and so that one was like one where I was like, it should be a bonus track or thrown out. Like I was so ready to be like, this can't be on the record. Like this is no good. And yeah, and then in the studio, Brad and Gavin did the coolest thing ever to make a fake omnichord. So they layered two kind of like randomized synths from, I think it's the organelle by Teenage Engineering, and then with auto harp, and that's that kind of like sparkly thing. And yeah, they just made that from scratch, and it was just the coolest like melding of minds to do that thing.
That's incredible. That's the first thing, yeah, I wrote. I was like sparkling. And it's so different from the two songs that are before it and after it on the album. So as you guys will listen, it stands out. I'm so glad that song exists. You guys are incredible for that. Very, very cool. So next question, we have two more, and these are going to be more kind of like big picture. I like ending on like more philosophical notes because musicians, I also think of you guys as philosophers because you guys have to do so much thinking to make the music. So the ne next one is about the title. So it's called Nothing Sticks. But for you, throughout this process, what have you learned, are some things in your life that you want to stick or that you don't want to change? What do you
Mhm.
hold on to is another way to phrase it.
Uh, I was talking about this with someone on Tuesday where I was like, I don't like, or when I think about like my 5 year plan, my 10 year plan, I'm like, the only thing, like, I don't know if I can plan on anything other than the fact that I'll probably be making music. Like, that's really the only like foresight that I have is like, yeah, in the next 5 years, I'm probably gonna make another record. Like, that feels so normal to me, and being like, I don't know about anything else. Like I really don't have no idea. Which is maybe part of being like young, I don't know. But I feel like some my friends have a sense they're like, yeah, I'll probably be in New York. I'll probably like be with this person. We'll probably be living together. And I was just like, not me. Like I don't know. Um, and I think I want that to stick around for sure. Um, I would love to keep as many friends as I can, you know. I think just having, yeah, keep telling my friends I love them more. Like I think just like existing with more gratitude and outward love because it could all change in an instant. I think is something that I hope persists in my continued existence as a human being.
Hmm. Well said. Well said. Nothing to add there. Just I want the listener to sit with that answer. Thank you for sharing that. And the last question is similar, but you could take it in whatever direction you want. As you were making this album, this fantastic album, listen to it, guys, when it comes out. Um, what did you learn about yourself while you were making it on a personal level, and what did you learn about yourself artistically while making this album?
Love this question. Um, I hmm. I think personally, like the biggest thing that I took away from, and I think I'm still learning, is like, and I is like when you, I think there's this sometimes with songwriters, like, people are like, this is like confession, this is me like releasing my demons, and it doesn't always have to be that. Like, this making this album was me trying to be like, I want to feel more grateful, I want to feel more positive, and I don't know really how to do that, but I'm going to write it into existence and have that, and then once it exists, like maybe that'll help me feel that way more of the time. um I think it's like, if Parts I Dread was like, the only is like way I have to deal with this situation is through music. This is like Nothing Six is like, if I'm on a stage playing to people, if I have, music that I'm sharing with the world, like what do I want to say? Like, if I have, like, what do I want to tell people? Like, it's definitely made with like a direct address in mind, and I don't think it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm writing for my audience. It's just like, I'm trying to like, if you're like, imagine you, like, if you're on a stage in front of people, like, and you have like, you could say anything, like, what would you want to say? Like, and that is kind of the question that I was like asking myself. And I think this, like, a message that I feel really strongly about in terms of just like being accepting that, letting go, like, I think as like kind of this human nature kind of thing. As an artist, I what did I learn about myself as an artist? Well, I think that there's so much left to explore that I don't know how to do. Like, I think that is really cool and exciting. Or I think with Nothing Six, it was like, okay, let's kind of start with what we did on Parts I Dread, but let's make an improvement. And I think it unlocked a lot of doors of like, oh, there's so many different directions that I could like go in. I was like, what if I made a heavy record? Or like, what if I only made a record on guitar? Or what if I made an ambient record? Or what if I did chamber pop? Like, it was like, oh, there's so many like palette options. And I was like, now it's gonna be hard to choose like what I want to do next. Like, there's so much left I want to do, which is a really exciting feeling as a songwriter. I think my favorite Pokemon is Eevee, and it's because Eevee can become so many different things. Like, it's just like, that's the possibility. And sometimes like musically, I'm like, that's kind of like, I can try on these different hats, and like, yeah, so that's what I'm most like excited about moving forward in music.
Well, as a Vark head, we're excited for the future for you. March 21st, guys. Listen to Nothing Sticks. It's a special album. Because you mentioned Eevee, I have to show everybody I am wearing a watch, a Pokemon watch, and Eevee is on it.
Oh my God! So
So that is
cute!
insane that you mentioned that. Because I have a couple watches and I'm wearing the Pokemon one on today. I like Pokemon.
Oh,
If I
that's
wasn't a writer of music, I'd be a writer of Pokemon, most likely. Like, honestly. Um, so that's very, very cool. So sorry, tangent. Thank you so much, Pictoria, guys. Nothing Sticks, March 21st. Buy the vinyl, merch, go to the shows, like, support, support, support. We're not sticking with just the streaming services anymore. We're thinking about new ways to support our artists, and please, please, please find ways to support and go to her Bandcamp and all the things. But thank you so much, Victoria. We hope to have you on again for the next album, or just come by and we could just talk music. I'd love that. Thank you for doing what you do, and have a great rest of your day, okay?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this was such a fun chat. I'm stoked to hang in Brooklyn, and yeah, definitely let me know next time you're in Chicago.